No, I don't. Sorry, no, no, I don't know, not at all, sorry. And we are closed for Thanksgiving and Friday, the Friday after, just so you know, just to remind you of that. Okay, I'd like to introduce our speaker. Lou is the co-founder of Transforming Communication Groups. He has extensive experience in business, recruiting, consulting with Fortune 500 companies such as Arthur Andersen, Baxter Healthcare, and Harris Bank, and IBM. He has a strong understanding of what are the challenges that we're facing in today's economy and marketplace and workplace. He combines his training in sales with his communication and business education to prepare individuals to successfully market themselves. So please join me in a very, very warm welcome, Lou Costabile.
Thank you, Nancy. Appreciate it. Okay, I'll give you a little bit of my background just so we know where we're at. I've got about 2 hours worth of material. I speak to the DeVry students. I'm their career wrap-up speaker in what they call their career development class. And I've been invited by Bruce Bloom, introduced me to Nancy, and that's why I'm here. I started my own business at 41 called ARS Technology, and we support companies right here in the Chicagoland area between 20 to 50 computer users. I have another business called True Power Martial Arts, where I'm the president of that, and that's been going on for 30 years. You can see by my prowess that I look like a guy who runs a martial art business, right? I look like Jerry Seinfeld with glasses. But that prompted me to teach the flight attendants at 9/11. After that happened over here at Algonquin, there were me and 8 other people who were flown in from across the globe to teach them how to defend the planes and things like that. And I was brought there because I speak English and I look like your average American. So with all that being said, I'm not very passionate. That's why I started a martial art company. But my one area of passion that I do have is for people who've lost their job. Because when I lost my job back in 1995, that was the beginning of me learning the things I'm going to share with you today, of really learning about career and how to get there. The problem that we have today, whether it's the people I'm teaching in college or yourselves, is we really haven't been taught what to do with a resume when we lose a job or how to get a job. There's not really a great teaching, and I have to compliment Nancy and her team because they're educating you on how to do that. A lot of times there's things that I call God-given talents, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, that we're not utilizing. And I'm going to help you, hopefully, give you some tools and some nuggets to do those things. What's on the board behind me is what I go over with the students at DeVry. I'm not going to go through all of those because we've got a little different group here. I'm guessing that the group is 40 and up mostly. Is there anybody under 40 here? Okay. All right. It's okay. Well, congratulations. Congratulations to those who are under 40 and not there. So with that being said, I want to say one other thing too, which I start off with the DeVry students, is if I don't say everything politically correct, can we all just agree that we move forward? Because probably some of you losing your job wasn't politically correct, and it wasn't nice and warm and fuzzy. Or like I say with the martial arts students, I say, look, the guy who's going to attack you is not going to walk up to you, introduce themselves, and try to take your money. They're usually going to be abusive and abrasive. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to swear or anything like that, but it does mean we're going to talk very openly and honestly in a very deep, quick, short time frame. Are we all okay with that? Okay, great. All right, I'm going to move behind this because a lot of what I do is writing, and usually I have a board, but since I don't have that, I have a little camera over here. Well, what I want to start off with is when I had lost my job, I sent out 99 resumes, and I got 99 rejection letters. And back in 95, you actually used this thing called the post office, and you actually got something back called mail, and you waited, and then you got rejected, and you get very excited opening mail, and then you get rejected. Well, being Italian and Irish, that means I'm good for pasta and revenge. Those are the two things that I'm good for. So since I don't cook, that now left me just revenge. So I said, if that's the case, what do I do? And I said, I'm going to have to figure out a way to make money. And this is for yourselves. The first thing I did is I put my number down. Whatever your number is, put your number down. And then I divided that by 52 weeks in a year, and I divided it by 40 hours, and that's what you now need to make. And now the equation becomes, if that's what I need to make, how do I get there? I brought a prop with me today named Dennis. He's my neighbor, and I basically went through his career with him, and he was sharing with me on the way how his career has completely changed through our conversations at lunch. And one of the things I just did with him and his son recently, his son's 23, I took his son out to lunch and I did the same thing with him. I said, so what do you want? And he goes, well, I'm 23, I want a BMW, I want a house, I want a girl. Which one do you want first? Well, the car, of course, he wants first. The girl can come later, right? I mean, he's 23. And I said, well, this is how you do it. And we did the mathematics. And I said, now you need to figure out how to make $42.50 an hour. That's your goal. And you're currently working at GameStop making $9.50. Well, the first thing that he did is he went back to GameStop and he started utilizing some of the things I'm going to share with you today. And he immediately got, within a week, he moved up to the associate store manager. So he started moving his number up immediately. So how do we do some of those things? Okay. So first we got to know our number. We got to know our target. So I hope that that helps some of you right there, because maybe nobody's ever explained that to you, that you need to know your target. Speaking of targets, the first thing that we want to look at, especially when we look at what a corporation wants, well, what does a corporation want? Well, I'm going to kind of give you some of these answers. You all remember the peace sign, okay? Articulation and presentation, experience, and degree. And it kind of works like this: 20%, 40%, and 40%. Now screw that up, put that there for you, like that. That's what they want. 40% of it is they want you to look like them. They want you to sound like them. There's that great Mac PC commercial that the guy kind of looks like Bill Gates and the other guy looks like a Mac user, right? And they go back and forth about what's wrong with the Mac and what's wrong with the PC. But that really is stating what the person looks like. And then experience. I want to add to experience on this 40%. Let's break it down to one plus year, let's say 3 to 5, and 5 plus. And on this line is money, on that experience line. If you have 1 year's experience, you're going to make less money generally. And if you have 5 years' experience, you're going to make more money generally. So that at the high level is what they want, okay? Now the other thing, and I'm going to change this a little bit for the group that I've got here, is you need to, you meaning me too, we need to figure out what the society want from us that can generate that number that we already figured out. What skill set do we have? When I lost my job, my father was a lifelong wire puller for Illinois Bell, now known as AT&T. My mother was a lifelong receptionist, so I didn't have any training in any of this stuff at all. My father passed away when I was 14, so I knew I had to do something on my own. And if it wasn't for my grandmother passing away, I wouldn't have had much money for college, and that's what got me through college. So here I was, a guy with a degree with no skill sets, basically looking for any job that I could land in. Might sound familiar to some of you. Maybe you had people before you who showed you those things. So it wasn't until I finally got let go and had the 99 resume situation, the 99 come back, that I said, I got to do something with my own skill sets that'll get me there. So I went to something called the Dearson Group at the time, and they shared with me, they said, Lou, it appears that your skill sets are in the element of communication. And I had never thought of that because it was so obvious to me that I could communicate. It would take me hours to do mathematics. It would take me hours to do science. And yet a speech in college, I could do it in 5 minutes without even thinking about it and get an A in it. But I never thought I could make money doing that. Could I actually hit my number doing that? So I started looking, what were my skill sets? Well, when I got let go, a friend of mine said, hey, Lou, they got a sales position over here. So I took that sales position, and the person gave me 0 training, and I failed in 3 months. I found another job from a girl who worked with the company who said, hey, they're looking for someone who can work in computers. And Lou, we know you're taking a Windows class. This is 1995. Windows just became graphical. So we're going to have you work with this computer person, if you'd like that. So I took an $8,000 cut. Worked with this guy named Bennett Santana. Well, Bennett was probably the biggest blessing to me because he took me under his wing and he said, I need you to do this. And then I need you to do this. And then I need you to do this. Just like I told you, the first thing you want to do is take your number, write it down, divide it by 52, divide it by 40, and that's your number. Now figure out how to make it. If we don't have a target, we're not going to get there, okay? Most of us don't have a target. That's what I'm here to do is get you to that target. So once I started learning that my communication skills, and by the way, this is something that my mother said probably when I was 8. Wow, you really communicate well. You know, I found out, wow, I could be a pastor, I could work as an airline attendant, I could work as a comedian, I could work as a public speaker, I could work as a salesperson. All these jobs opened up once I found out what my skill set was. So the other thing that happened is now in 1995, and that's where ARS Technology started, he said, I want you to recruit IT people. I'll train you how to recruit them. So I got my training. And I interviewed 3,000 people live. I've seen over 10,000 IT resumes, and I started to become an expert at what a resume should look like, because I was speaking to all the bigwigs in Chicago. Arthur Anderson, Anderson Consulting, Aon, Allegiance, Baxter, Citibank, Deloitte & Touche, EDS, IBM, Grainger, Xerox. And I would talk 15% of the time. They'd talk 85% of the time. And I'd basically repeat back to them what they said that I heard. And they'd say, right. And then I'd come back and get them what they want. And I had a 98% success ratio that the people I placed with them worked. So how do you do that with having no skills? Well, you got to get some training in what that is. Even if it's sometimes you have to, Nancy mentioned this, volunteer. So I don't want to go too far back in my speech. So Dennis, I'm going to bring you up as a prop. Come on up. Dennis is my neighbor. He's been my neighbor for 9 years. And I'm going to ask him some questions because it may sound like some of you. You worked for what company for a long time? HSBC, global banking company. How long were you there for?
12 years.
12 years. And Dennis and I would go to lunch about once every 2 weeks, just completely screwing around. No value whatsoever. Would that be fair?
Yeah.
Okay. And at the 2-hour mark or 2-year mark, what happened to your financial situation at home? If you're open to talking about that.
I hit a brick wall. Job wasn't giving me any raises.
Move a little bit up more and get a little louder.
I was not getting any raises. I was not getting any opportunity to expand my goals and everything. So I was without any opportunity to grow. My bills grew. My wife was quite capable of doing that for me, and my income stayed the same. So my wife and I entered into Chapter 13 bankruptcy.
I'm going to pause him there just because of time. So now we're in bankruptcy, and I had been talking to you about 2 years about doing what?
Going to church.
Going to church. So here I am talking to him about going to church. By the way, I didn't start my career knowing anything about religion. I was a good Catholic kid, which means I never cracked open a Bible. I went to church and Christmas and Easter. That was my two things. I did know that I was supposed to stand when a priest walked into the room, and I did know what a ruler felt like on my tail from my 1 year of Catholic school. But other than that, then I went to public school, and my father, as I said, passed away when I was 14, so that was a free get out of church free card. So I didn't go back to church until I was about 31. And I won't go into that story too much farther, but go ahead. So
it was probably about 2 years you worked on me to get me to go to church.
Okay, 2 years.
And then
fast learner.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Rocket scientist, computer programmer can do that, but can't figure it out. So one day Lou just says, that's it. Come on, you got to go to church with me. Easter's coming up. He says you got to go. I says, well, let me go see what the wife wants to do.
Well, let me pause him for a second. Let me fast forward the story.
Fast forward.
So he goes to church with me. He accepts Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior.
Yep.
He learns something about faith in his life. He learns something about hope in his life. His wife comes to church with him. And we are blessed to have some great churches in this area. We've got Bill Hybels at Willow Creek. We've got James McDonald out at Harvest. I didn't learn about Christ until I was 31. That's just part of my speech now. It wasn't part of my speech then. When I got into the martial arts when I was 17, it was all about kicking your ass. And I was pretty good at it, believe it or not. And, that just changed you. By the way, there's a guy out there named Paul, the apostle, who was also a Christian ass kicker and then had this conversion thing. Turned out to be one of the greatest apostles of all time. Anyway, but with that being said, so now you lose your job.
Yep.
You're in bankruptcy.
Yep. So
he was in bankruptcy. I told him to go to church. Then he loses his job. Now he's an unemployed, church-going guy. And Dennis, the reason why I brought him as a prop is he was inspiration to me because I have never to this day seen someone who was more motivated of being unemployed. And I said, so I went into attack mode as soon as I heard he lost his job. I go, okay, we're going to get up on LinkedIn. We're going to get your resume set up. And what did you tell me?
What did I tell you?
You told me to calm down. You're
Oh
like,
yeah,
Lou, relax.
I
Relax.
said,
I got this covered. I got this covered.
I told him, I says that the one thing that I saw out of this was not that God had taken my job away. God had just opened the door for me to get a better one. So
Yeah, and to that method of thinking, he said, I'm going to be the best developer out there, and somebody's going to be blessed to have me. And I was like, wow. I wish I would have that much faith to think that way. And sure enough, now tell your victory story. That's the test. Let's get to the testimony.
Okay. So after about 6 weeks of unemployment, I got a job as a consultant.
Let me pause you for a second. And because he was unemployed and bankrupt, they then moved him to Chapter 7, which meant all of his debt was canceled. Go ahead.
And then I got the job at Follett.
And then he got a job.
So I worked there till I will end my employment there on the 21st of this month. Because I got found by a headhunter who got me an interview.
On LinkedIn, which I told him to get on. Go ahead.
Yes, Lou. And I interviewed with the job last week, and I will be going to a permanent position, full-time with benefits and all the accessories that go with it, starting the 26th of November. So.
All right. Thank you. So I know what I'm sharing with you works, not only for the students, but for yourself. This doesn't really help you. You kind of get that. So let me get some things that are a little more practical that are going to help you. One of the things that happens, especially with younger people, is they start to think, what size company do I want to work for? And I'm going to give you that answer too because of time. We want to work for a company. It's not so much the company, it's about our reputation. So you can work for a small business, run your business as I run our business, and I'm making much more money now working for a small business than I ever did working for any of those large corporations. Okay, it really is based on you. So you could be the big fish in the small pond or the small fish in the very big pond. So a lot of that mentality comes from your parents saying, well, I always worked for AT&T. Son, you should work for a large company and you should be the... Well, there are some benefits that, those companies do give you some benefits, but usually, your pay raise is very low and things like that. And if you've got the motivation or the determination to realize what your skill sets are, to move yourself in a position where you can do it, you can increase your salary dramatically. And might I add, there's a lot of large companies out there that all started very small. And they all started very small until they got very large because they believed in themselves, whether it's Ray Kroc right here in McDonald's, who started here, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to try to give you some encouragement there. There's a book, do you guys remember this guy? Joe Gibbs? He used to run the Redskins. So, this is a group that probably remembers that with Joe Riggins and all of the Diesel, blah, blah, blah. And he then ran NASCAR for a while, Tony Stewart, and he wrote a book called Racing to Win. Well, the long story short, and it doesn't matter whether you're a Christian or not a Christian or whatever your ethnic belief is, Donald Trump says this all the time in his show, and that is chapter 3, do what you love. If you're not doing what you love, you're not going to be successful in it. And what I mean by successful is success isn't based on your cash. Success is based on what you do. All right? I don't make much money doing martial arts. I mean, I really don't. It's almost a charity event. But I impact people tremendously with that. So it changes them and their personality, and it changes their course of life, etc. And doing that. Matter of fact, one of the places I taught as I just passed by it was Motorola. Has anybody heard of this? You can't really see it there. The universal language, the DISC. I heard some people say Myers-Briggs. All right, this is worthy of talking about. Myers-Briggs, throw that out. That's chess. This is checkers. The D stands for dominant. Okay, you think of Donald Trump in the boardroom on the Celebrity Apprentice or the show that he's playing. All right, the D is for dominant. Those are usually business owners. They usually don't have much time for you. I just noticed General Petraeus, right? It's a 4-star general. Is taking a little dive right now. But he probably was very, get to the fact, did we take this hill? Did we not take this hill? Those type of people. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is imagine we went to Japan, but we didn't speak Japanese. That wouldn't work very well for us, or it would be a challenge, right? I'm going to show you how to speak to people very quickly, checkers-like, so that when you're speaking to people, especially when you're being interviewed by them, you can speak their language. Because if I did speak Japanese and I was in Japan, they would accept me much more easily. Okay? You look like you're asking a question. Well, go ahead. No, go ahead. Yeah, what the hell do I have, right? Which one are you on? That was what size company do you want to work for? So then we already talked about that. It's all about you. It's not about the size of the company. But the point I want to make regarding the D is they will offend you right away. Not intentionally. It's like a zebra. It has stripes, whether it's just a zebra. So it'll sound something like this. May I borrow you? Okay, what's your name? Bob. Hey, Bob. You want to work for my company, right? What are you going to do for me?
I will bring...
You need to make me rich. That's all I'm really interested in. How fast can we get to that point? How fast are you going to do that? 1 week. All right, Bob, let's go. Let's start and let's go. And that's how fast they will talk to you. Bob says 1 week. I like that answer. Let's go. Guess what happens in the 6th business day if Bob hasn't delivered? You're out. Okay? They're not interested in anything other than results. They're very rude, not intentionally, just that they've got so many things on their plate. You actually, Bob gets to talk with me after I go, Bob, so it's the 6th day. You've just made me a lot of money. Congratulations. Thanks for being on my team. By the way, Bob, what do you and your family do usually on the holiday that's coming up? See, now you've earned the right to hang with them because you've delivered. The D, you've been dominant. You've shown you can do it. You're dependable. Okay? If you're not dependable, nothing's going to happen. The opposite side of that is when they offend you, don't be offended by it. Let's go to the next person, which is the I. Nancy mentioned there's going to be a comedian here. The I is an influence person. And it'll usually sound something like this. You'll go to an HR department, and they'll say, hi, I'm Sally, and you're going to work for CNA Insurance, and we're so glad you're here. How's everything? How's your kids? How's the family? How's the dog? Oh, really? The dog is such a problem with the dog. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, by the way, we've got this job we'd like you to apply for. The job is secondary. The influence is the person who's at Thanksgiving. You'll see them. They'll be making the turkey for everybody, making sure everybody's happy. At the same time, Jimmy over here is doing crack cocaine, their son. Oh, that's okay, as long as he's here for Thanksgiving. Thank goodness we're all together, right? The influence person, just be there. Salespeople are influence. It's a great opportunity there. You know when you see them, they sound 2 sales a year at the car dealer, right? The problem with the influence person is you can't embarrass them publicly, or you shouldn't. So what you do is you take, let's just say Sally, and I say, hey Sally, I'm your boss, Lou. Come on over in the other room for a minute. Hey, you know what? You're doing a great job. Oh, thanks, Lou. That's so good to hear. How are you? I'm fine. Thanks for asking, Sally. By the way, what I need you to do, though, is you took 2 hours with that last applicant to have them fill out their job application. Do you think we can get that to about 30 minutes? Oh, yeah, sure. And you talk to them that way, and then they go back out and they don't feel embarrassed. The S in the DISC is steady. Most of us are steady and C, cognitive. The steady person kind of sounds like this the whole time. They're not going to be too high and they're not going to be too low. Gee, we just had 2 planes run into 2 buildings here in New York. That's a bad day, it seems like. At the same time, oh my gosh, I just realized, look at this. I got the winning lotto ticket. Man, this is great. So they're always kind of steady, and they like their coffee at 8 o'clock, and they then walk over to the copier, and they make sure that it's got the right toner cartridges in there, and then they walk over and they sit down at their job, and they do their accounting all day, and it kind of sounds like this the whole day, and they go back to their wife, and her wife's name is Mary, because that's a nice, solid, steady name, and Mary, they sit down, they watch Wheel of Fortune, usually right at 6:30 every day, and they go to bed at 8, steady. Now, steady freaked everybody out at Amoco, the 100-year-old company, when they said, we're going to turn into BP now. And you literally had ambulances roll up to their front of their place. So steady's like no change whatsoever. Problem is with that is it's always changing, right? We used to have something called mail. Now we have something called faxes. Then we have something called email. Then we have something called my phone is in my hand all the time, texting. Now we have 24/7 service all the time. You don't know that. You have teenagers, watch them. They never put the thing down. It's glued to them at all times. What are they going to do? They have no idea of downtime. There is no downtime. I walked past my 16-year-old daughter's room last night. I think it was 2 o'clock, and I saw the glow off her face of her phone. Who is contacting you? Who? My girlfriend. About what? What? Right? The steady. The cognitive person is a perfectionist. The perfectionist person is great at accounting. The perfectionist person is great at application development. The code needs to be perfect. If it isn't perfect, they actually could care less about people generally. They want their computer to work just right, and then they produce this perfect piece of paper that they show their boss, but their boss is a D. And when they show this perfect piece of paper, what happens is they're worried about perfect rather than working in excellence. And what happens with perfect is nobody's perfect, right? So they give them this piece of paper that if they would have taken an hour to do of this 5-hour project they made it into, they could have brought it back after an hour, which would be 80% of the value, brought it to their boss, and the boss, when they pull out the red pen, would have said, well, gee, I really didn't have an idea of what I was doing anyway. I just kind of mentioned make a website, and now you've brought me this back, and, well, that's a perfect website. Well, no, we need this over here. And they freak out whenever you wreck perfect in their mind. So when you're talking to somebody, this is from the business level, okay? There's something below that, which you can try at home, called the 5 love languages. If you want to find out about the 5 love languages, go to punch in 5lovelanguages.com, and Gary Chapman will tell you all about that, okay? But from a business perspective, you need to know those when you're walking into somebody. So if you're talking to the manager of HR, they're usually going to be an I, generally. When you're talking to the business owner, he's usually going to be a D. Most of the time with the business owner, they will tell you what they want. Do you have any questions for me? Yeah, what is it that you'd like me to perform in the business? I want you to do the accounting function better than anybody I've ever had. Okay, thank you. I'll be able to do that, no problem. And they go, thanks, bye. And they're satisfied with your answer. It's just as simple as that for the D. The C is the toughest one in the group because you can't tell necessarily if they're S, because they don't get too revved up, or if they're C. But you can tell by walking into their office. Their office will look stellar. You'll walk in and everything is perfectly aligned. I don't know if anybody's seen the show The Incredibles. Anybody ever see that show, The Incredibles, Mr. Incredible and his family of Incredibles? He has this boss for a short time period named Bob, and Bob sits at his desk, and he's a little guy, and of course Mr. Incredible's a big guy, and he puts his pen, he takes his pen, and he rearranges it just so it's just so on his desk. That's a perfectionist. Mr. Incredible didn't deal too well with him, but if you've seen the movie. Okay, let's move on to something else. What do we got here? We did the disc. What needs to be on your resume? I find at this age, and I'm in your age group, I find that at this age, the people who send me resumes who've been at places for 10 years, 12 years, have no clue on what to do in a resume. Not intentionally. They go to Microsoft, they pull up the resume page, they try to fill out the best of their event. I want you to get, there's 4 pieces that every resume should have. First one is a clear objective. I was talking to a gentleman today, and he said, I do computer infrastructure. And I'm thinking to myself, well, computer infrastructure means building servers, and means building exchange boxes and putting PCs on people's desks and connecting to them. And as I talk to him more, it turns out that it has nothing to do with infrastructure. He's never built a box before. But what he does is he trains end users on how to do computer, Word, Excel, things like that. I said, well, really, you're a computer trainer. And the problem is the focus of the target. You can be close, but close doesn't get you there. If we're throwing nuclear weapons, we don't want to accidentally hit Turkey when we're trying to hit Iran. So you can't be close. You've got to be really accurate. So let me give you some visuals. Okay, I took one of the resumes that came to me recently, and I blotted out some information. But do you see, let's just go through this executive summary. Currently enjoy an interest in multiple successful IT-based organizations while performing consulting in private and public sectors using software tools. By the way, this person actually writes for the Naperville Sun. A hacker mindset which counsel other security information. I have no idea what he's trying to do. And I know this guy. So I told him, and let's look at the first bullet points down, I'm sorry. Right here. Establish proof of concept necessary to design. Would you hire somebody because they said that they directed all aspects of an organization with full P&L responsibility? What does that mean, right? I mean, I get it, profit and loss responsibility, but it's not telling me anything. And the problem is we get so comfortable going to an interview hoping that they're going to like the heck out of us and thinking that that's going to be good enough. Go back